Hello, Radiant One, and welcome to the Golden Frequency, the show and podcast sharing wisdom, experiences, tools, and knowledge for and from the new era, weaving the worlds of seen and unseen, spiritual and practical, magical and mundane. I am your host, spiritual business coach, energy alignment method mentor, catalyst, and facilitator, Maria Serafina. I serve soul-driven, heart-based spiritual entrepreneurs and holistic business owners wanting to grow and expand from within, as well as lead with love in business and life. If you have yet to join my sacred newsletter community of Radiant Ones, here to support the unveiling, the awakening, healing, and transformation of all through the lifting of the frequency and vibration of our realm, personally and collectively, I invite you to join us. Go to mariaserafina.com/EAM, where you will also receive my free guide to the 5 steps of the energy alignment method, designed to support you in recognizing and releasing stagnant, stale, or stuck energy in every area of your life and business, as well as create flow and align you to that which you do desire. On my website, you will also find show notes, transcripts, and previous episodes. Know that I always encourage you to listen with an open heart and an open mind and take only what serves you and leave the rest. It is my deep honor, my great pleasure and joy to share this episode with you. Here is today's episode. Hello, Radiant One, and a very big and a very warm welcome into today's episode, in which I am going to be diving into how to clear your filters when it comes to human design and the gene keys, and also throughout that share my journey of walking with these modalities or these methodologies. I first discovered the system. I had to go back and see when was the first time it came into my life, and I think I discovered it I checked my emails and I can see that I signed up to get my first free chart done about 3 years ago in 2018. However, it wasn't something that was it wasn't something that I explored further. It was just something that I apparently came across my whatever day, and then I did a profile, and then that was it. I wasn't really called towards it in a deeper way, and I can't see the dates for the gene key profile that I did, but that would have been somewhere around the same time for some reason. And then it wasn't until when was it, over solstice of 2020 where I dove further and deeper into it. However, I just want to do a quick disclaimer. I'm no expert. I'm not a reader. I will, in the show notes and the blog post that follows this episode, I will make sure that I'll leave links to all of the different resources where you might check out more. And also Google is your friend, because there is now today a plethora of content when it comes to all of the design and all the gates and the keys and also all of the deeper aspects. And so it's about finding what resonates for you, because so I'm going to leave links for you for that. To just give you a brief overview, the system or the methodology is comprised by a variety of other resources. So it's comprised of astrology, Kabbalah, quantum physics, I Ching, the chakras. And knowing that, it's interesting because I've sat with friends where they don't realize that the human design, they've loved human design, and they don't realize it's actually comprised of other different systems that have been, I don't want to say put together, because the way that the man who downloaded it or was penetrated by a voice who gave him the system explains it. He explains it in the way that he was penetrated by a voice. However, it is comprised of other ancient systems, and so and like I said, I've had people who didn't realize that, and so we can't not talk about cultural appropriation in terms of human design. And I have sat with it for a while, and it's a journey that I'm still walking. I'm in the show notes. I'm going to leave some links for you as well, so that you can discern what's right for you and make up your own mind in terms of it. And yes, I'm gonna do that. So I just wanted to that is I know that that's something that's ongoing in the community, in the way that we're using it and how we're using it and where it actually comes from. For me, it's always very, very important to point out the origins of things. And so whenever I'm talking about human design or the Gene Keys, I'm always making a reference back to the original systems as well. So just so you know that. Again, to give you a brief overview, the human design is based on your birth data. And there are 5 different types. You have 9 centers, of which some can be opened and others can be defined. And within these centers, you have gates and you have channels. And these channels and gates can be activated also, or quote unquote inactive. And that again depends on the time of your birth. It's both the time of your birth and also, excuse me, prior to your birth. Then you have, within each type there is a strategy, and there is also your authority. One of the things that I've noticed in terms of authority is, for example, I have sacral authority, which means that I know straight away. Whereas I can see I have clients, for example, who have emotional strategy, and based on the cycle of their emotional strategy, they have to have longer times in terms of making decisions. And they also have to go through a full cycle, but they have to it not takes them longer. That's just because I am who I am, that for me it takes longer. I don't want to make that judgment, but it takes more time for them to make decisions in order for them to discern what is right for them or not. And so the system is really powerful in the way that I know that a lot of people have aha moments when they do go through these. But like I said, I will leave you a lot of links and a lot of resources that you can check out, so that you can either pull your own chart or you can dive in deeper into the to the method of it. Now, the gates of human design, of which there is a total of 64. I think it's a maximum of 26 that can be activated in one chart. Those gates is actually originated in I Ching. And Richard Rudd has developed, expanded on the work of I Ching through his book, The Gene Keys. If you're listening to this via podcast, just know that I'm holding up a book where I'm showing the book. I did initially get it on Kindle, but then because there's so much wisdom in it, I had to have a real copy of it so that I could sit with it as well. So I do that. Now for me personally, like I said, I had knowledge of the system for, at the time, I guess, about at my when I dove in 2 years. And it was a dear friend of mine, who's actually also, she does do human design readings, and I'll leave her link as well. Shout out Violetta. She was the one who brought it back into my world. And so I completely submerged myself in it over the solstice of 2020. I was really fortunate that I had friends and clients and family who was willing to give me their birth data, so I was able to pull a lot of different charts, so that I was able to see what different things meant. Because sometimes, when we hold a mirror to ourselves, it can be difficult to see things. But I do, of course, recognize myself in my chart. But it's also really not important, but it was really valuable for me to be able to see, oh, this is where, and they have this strategy, or they have this authority, so it made sense to me. And I did have times, especially with former clients, where there are things that I now know that I would have done differently in my work with them, or at least I would have tried doing differently, and see if it would have given us a different result. So today, that's how I use it with my clients. I'm not a reader and not nor an expert. I don't, but I use especially the types to know or to have an idea of their not I don't want to say reaction pattern, but the way that they structure things and systemize things and the flow of things when it comes to launching or programs or to completion of work or tasks at hand, how much rest they need, how much restitution, finding the rhythms and the structures that work for you is something that I've always done in my work previously even, but now it's interesting to have a tool where you can kind of tweak it because you have a deeper understanding when you know their type. And so that's what I did over the over solstice. I dove into the charts and very quickly, because everyone was saying that you need to clear your filters and you need to clear your centers and you need to clear and no one was saying, how do you do that? And me being very practical and very grounded, I suppose, I'm very like, but how do I do that? And where do I go for that information? And I couldn't find anything. And so me being an accredited energy alignment method mentor, I of course have my own method that I use in releasing energy in other different areas. And so it was, I guess, both natural, although it wasn't like I made a conscious choice that this is what I'm gonna do. It sort of just happened when I realized that the gates were actually the gene keys, or was told that the gates were actually the gene keys. And then I began reading this book. Then questions started coming in for me, like questions of that allow for me to either reflect upon something or actually be what I call releasing statements or releasement statements, where you can check whether or not something is present in your energy, which EAM is brilliant for. And if it's present in your energy, you can then go ahead and release it. And so if you're someone who's working with human design or studying human design or doing that and you haven't found a method, I highly recommend that you go ahead and download my free EAM guide. You can go to mariaserafina.com/EAM and you can download it, and then you can start using that tool to releasing whatever's present in your energy. For me, like I said, I then started having questions come in, which is very normal for me now. Whenever I read something, study something, I begin to, it's like questions just start, like text and things just start, questions just start coming in terms of what could be releasing. And what I did was I would write them down, and I had these very almost unreal experiences where it was like I could physically literally feel energy shifting when I was working with a gate or a key, as like they're both called, and these questions were way deeper than I would normally be able to formulate. For some reason, at least for myself. It's different when I'm in a session with a client, as if you're someone who's has sessions with clients or holds space for groups, you probably know this already, that very often when you're the space holder, like I am amazed at the things that pour out of me both in sessions and when I do my activations or the step 5s. I'm like, it's, you open the channel and stuff comes through. It's different when you're doing it for yourself. That's why I also like to write down, because that way I can channel or download the things that are coming through. And so that's what I did. And I wanted to share with you just a couple of questions so that you can see some of the things that I'm talking about. So for example, in the first gene key, which is from entropy to syntropy, which is the first one, which is really in I Ching, it's the ultimate divine masculine or the ultimate masculine. And one of the, just a couple of questions. One of them is the secret dynamic of duality locked in my DNA? For example, that's like, woo. Do I have resistance to male or masculine present or energy in my life, business, or energy? And then when you know the energy alignment method, you then sway on these questions. You use your muscle testing tool to sway on these questions, and then you can release them. The second gene key is the divine feminine, or I see it as the divine feminine, the ultimate divine feminine, the ultimate feminine. And some of the questions in there were, do I carry any ancient resistance to patriarchal systems? Which I thought was so funny. Also, am I out of alignment with my true universal destiny? And these are like, so you can see these are not like, they're not surface level questions. They're like, they go deep, and that's what it does. From Gene Key and Gate 38, the Warrior of Light. Let me check. This is also because it's also very physical. So is there anything to release from my adrenals? You can check for resistance or reversed energy or any patterns that you may want to release. Also, am I currently carrying any ancient genetic programming based on individual surviving? Oof. And then you can ask, does this program currently serve me, or can I release it? Which was like, yeah. Let me just keep going. 52, Gene Key 52. So what I did was I received, because I haven't completed all of them. It's a process, like even just going through them, it's just, it's deep work for me, and that it's deep work that I see that you continue. So what I did was, initially I shared them with a couple of friends to just hear what they thought about it. And I had one client, this was a client I shared with, who was like, her answer was, what book is this from and where can I buy it? And I was like, okay. And I had another friend who was like, OMG, these are unreal questions. And that kind of gave me the notion, okay, it's not just me, it's something that I can actually move forward with. And so I went and did a beta test where I, throughout a week, took a small group of people through Gene Key 52, which is called the Still Point, which is just that word, I can't even say it. It's just so, I feel like in every gate or every key, there, like, the whole universe is in it, and even just working with one of them would be transformational, and could be transformational in terms of what you release and how then that what flow that then creates in your life, the energy that you transform from one state to another, because nothing ever, like, energy is energy. So Gene Key 52, let's see, do I carry any unsupportive frequencies in my endocrine system? Is my auric field currently interlocked with billions of others? Can I release this? Is this serving me? And then there's the final one I'm going to share. There's more, but the final one that I'm going to share is from Radiating Prosperity, which is Gate 14, Gene Key 14. It says, is my spirit sapped and moved away from my true potential? And that's where I invite you to journal or explore and release. Also, has my spark of genius been suppressed or depleted, submerged underwater? So those are some of the questions. And even just reading them out to you now, I'm like, ooh. So what I did, and I wanted to show you, if you're listening to this via podcast, you can go ahead and see it. So what happens is all of the question, like whenever I go through a key or a gate, I download them, the questions afterwards, and I just sit there and I write them out because they just appear. The questions coming to mind based on the amazing work of Richard Rudd, who wrote the Gene Keys and is doing the Gene Key work. And so that's been coming through, and that's what's resulted in the program that I just released, or recently released at the time of this recording, called Release and Align, Human Design Gates and the Gene Keys, because I can see how powerful it is and how transformative the potential is for flow in your energy as you do this work. And I will have other programs coming out because I want to do the centers as well. I want to do the types as well. I want to use it for you to, so that you can release. So it's not just surface level. So it's not just the understanding of this is who I am, but it actually becomes a tool for you to use it to transform energy and bring you into a higher state of alignment and flow, essentially, in life. I have completely gone off the notes because of those beautiful statements. I will share a link, so if you want to check out the program, you can go to mariaserafina.com/program. That's where it's at. What else? Hold on. Like I said, I've had unreal experiences. And I also want to share that. So, in my experience, at least where I'm at so far, it doesn't matter whether, not that it doesn't matter, but I haven't seen a huge difference, and that's not completely true, have I? It's like the different keys find you at the right times, and so you can work with a key that's not necessarily activated in your chart. So if you have a chart where gate 14, for example, is activated or not activated, you might still find deep releasing and transformation in that one key, because like I said, for me, I find that each and every one of them are universal, and they are there's so much wisdom in just one key. I've had other people come back to me and be like, even if it hasn't been activated, like there's so much in this just one key. And I mentioned how I now use it as guidance. One of the things I really like about the method is that it is based on astrology. So it's based on your birth data. It's not something where you have to take a test to find out who you are. Like, it's, I don't want to say set in stone, but it kind of is. Like, it's based on your birth chart. So it takes the guesswork out of it. Am I answering these? I'm sure you've gone through all those 50 questions and you're like, oh, am I this type? And so that's one of the things I really enjoy about it as well. Right now, where I am at with it is that, like I said, there's going to be other programs coming out to support you in releasing or in transforming energy. But I'm also exploring different trainings and different teachers and different trainings to get quote unquote better educated. Not because I want to be a human design reader, because I don't see myself as that. I always incorporate it into my work so I have a better understanding of the people that I'm here to serve. So it's ultimately about being of more and better service for me when I do these types of things. So just to answer the main question, how to clear your filters or how to like release energy, what you can do is, like I said, download my free EAM guide, and you can then move through it yourself and use, whenever you go through that guide, I'll show you what the different steps of the method is. Take that and apply it into human design or the gene keys in whichever way that you find resonates the most for you. You can see whether or not, is it right for me to be working with this key or gate? Is it right for me to be working in this center? And then you can move through that in that way. That is what I had for you today. I would love to know two things. Number one, do you know your human design type? And if you do, I would love for you to share it with me in the comments. I have been blessed in the way that I have been blessed to work with all of the different types, which is rare because one of the types is a unicorn. And shout out to you who's the unicorn, because you know who you are. So I've been blessed to sit in a session with all of the different types. And there's like probably thousands of different designs. So that's not what I'm talking about. Having sat with thousands of people in different designs, I've sat with the different types, of which there are 5. And to be able to see the differences is just beautiful. So I would love to know what's your type, and also what has been your experience. That is what I had to share with you today. I am sending you loads of love. I hope that you'll have a wonderful day wherever in the world you might be. Bye. Radiant One, I hope today's episode served you well. For all the deeds and details, click the link in the description. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. so that the love shared within this episode through our connection may be amplified and rippled out further into the world. Thank you. I love you.